NL MVP. Joe, why isn't the price even lower on Acuna? It's 5-1, 450 in spots. It would be the first time in a long time we've had back-to-back MVP. But Acuna, to me, a guy who's had basically a career 40-40 pace or right around there, seems like I have very little reason, I guess, to suspect he falls off. Yeah, there's not a ton of value there, I guess, but man, he looks the part, he plays the part, and he's on the team that may have the best record in the National League again this year.
Yeah, even going into last year, he was the second favorite at 9-1. It did feel like it was his time. And then it was unbelievable. There was no debate the entire second half of the season. It was done earlier in the AL. That's what was really sucked about the awards last year. The two big ones that everyone talks about is AL and NL MVP, and both were decided so early in the season, there wasn't even a conversation to be had. That's because he had over 40 homers and had 73 stolen bases. Like, what? The stolen bases are not going to stop. So
It's crazy.
Your point is fair. Like, why isn't it a shorter number? Well, the answer is Shohei Ohtani. Even though he's not going to pitch, just the presence of Ohtani, and how many times is he's just going to keep hitting 40 homers as long as he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
If he's playing every day and he can focus on that entirely, like, he's going to be a real threat. That's the big question. So in the AL conference, it's funny how Ohtani dictates so much. In the AL, it's like, okay, is it more wide open now because he's out of the league? And in the NL, some of these numbers are up a little bit, we think, because of the presence of Ohtani, even though he's not going to pitch. But I also would say, okay, is this going to be the last time in a long time where you can find value elsewhere and you don't have to worry about Ohtani, because the voters know that they're going to give Ohtani more MVPs, and it's going to be a fair argument because WAR-wise, just value-wise, he brings so much to the table, pitching every week and playing and hitting all these homers. It might be one of the last times where they really just can avoid voting on Ohtani. So maybe we find something else. Yeah, like in recent years, you've been able to find some good numbers on winners. Goldschmidt a couple years ago was 66-1 to win the MVP. I mentioned earlier Harper going into the last couple months of the season, he was around 50-1. You can find some value. I just wonder going forward if that's going to continue to be the case. So me and Jake are putting a line through Ohtani. I mean, we're just not going to bet it at this number anyways because he's got more coming. Can a Dodger win it? Can you say there is a Dodger more valuable than Ohtani? So you would bet on a Dodger? You think that could happen?
I wouldn't bet any of these guys at this price because I famously don't like to go to the top of the board. But bets can absolutely win. They want a same thing as remember how down to the wire it went last year? Remember how much we had people banging the drum for bets?
But he wasn't going against Ohtani. But he wasn't going against Ohtani.
Right.
So and he's not going to be this year either.
My point is, I think there will be voters that say, well, he's not Ohtani's his teammate. He's not more valuable than Ohtani. So they might not give it to another Dodger. Here's another one that's up there in the top 5 in odds that I'm also willing to cross off in the Bregman category. I don't think these voters are going to vote for Tatis, no matter what.
No.
Oh, I disagree with that.
What? You think they would?
I think Tatis is a cheater. Live.
Wow.
But I think for different reasons. Like, that was so ambiguous and weird. Like, there's a difference between what Tatis did and if you believe him or not, but as opposed to the Astros scandal where it's a whole system. Like, I think there's a difference. I think voters would be more willing to vote for Tatis. And I think Tatis versus, like, when you talk about Bregman, the ceiling of what Tatis is capable of is way higher than anything Bregman's ever done. And I mean,
I understand, but what we were saying was part of the reason is that once you have that
I think people would be more willing to vote for Tatis than Bregman.
See, you're very smart, Jake, to always bring the voters into the conversation here. If there's one thing baseball voters hate, this is what we call the compliment sandwich here.
Here we go.
If there's one thing baseball voters absolutely hate more than anything, it's even is that a faint whiff of cheating? There's no way these guys are voting for Tatis. No way. The Padres could win 95 games and steal the division somehow. I still don't see the path for Tatis because the people that vote for MVP are not going to. Cheater! He's forever labeled. He's got cheater tattooed across his forehead. They won't do it. I can't see it. I will not stand for Brian Hayes blasphemy here, Hawk. What's his number? He's listed?
He's listed a 200. 200. Yeah, there was a 200 out there.
There we go. Yeah.
Show bet.
I will say, I'm not saying he's going to win.
Oh, here we go.
He's had a really good spring. He's had a really his exit velocity, his swing, everything looks. His Statcast
numbers. 4
games in, Jake.
Really? I'm not going to bet it.
You are
but I'm just saying he might.
You are not breaking down. You are not breaking down Brian Hayes' spring training Statcast number.
You want to make that bet, brother? You want to make that bet, brother?
What is wrong with
his
you?
EV50?
We don't got enough time for that.
Years before it was even a stat. Brian Hayes.
This is his breakout year. I think it's going to happen.
I actually think he could be an
Brian
all-star this year.
Hayes. Yes.
It would.
We bet on that.
It would figure the year they stole the year they fired his personal hitting coach because they didn't like the fact that the Double-A hitting coach had a connection with their future all-star third baseman. You big dummies. I'm very mad at Pittsburgh organizations this morning. I'm sorry. I'm taking it out on everybody.
When you look at some of the projections like Zips or whatever, and there are certain names that are popping that have a decent amount of value, like Adley Rutschman, like Carlos Correa. But I'm going to put a line through those names because a lot of the reasons they are so high in the projections is because of what they do on defense. And the voters just don't care about that. It just feels like it's a tiebreaker. It is strictly about the offensive numbers. And so, like, if you're going to go with an Oriole, I think you've got to look at Henderson as opposed to Rutschman. But, those names are going to be pretty popular. But, it's challenging because the top is so tough because right after Soto Judge, you've got Julio, you've got Yordan Alvarez, you've got Seager. If I'm going with one of those names, Aaron, I would go with Alvarez. I would bank on that and at 11-1 where, okay, let's see if we can get a full season out of Yordan Alvarez because when he's right, it's like, okay, he's getting you at least 40 home runs with the ceiling much higher than that.
I love Yordan Alvarez. I thought you were going to go with Corey Seager, another guy where it's like, gosh, if he can stay healthy, what is up with the health issues? That's what kind of held me back there. We were talking about World Series, and there's a team, the Mariners, who I said I'd love to bet on, and Jake was like, yeah, but all they got is Julio. And that made me think, you know what? Maybe I do need to look at Julio for MVP. He has a couple guys he's got to worry about ahead of him, but he's still so young. He's really good. He had a 30-30 season. It's 12-1, like you said, Joe. Not a ton of value there, but I'd rather bet on Julio MVP than Mariners World Series. So that would be my pick, Julio, for MVP
I think
in the American League.
I think we're all moving in similar directions. My logic was this. First of all, if you're going to be an MVP, I think your team's got to at least win the division, right? You've got to be a division winner. I don't like the Yankees to win the East. I like the Orioles. But I don't know if Henderson is the guy. So I end up going back out west. I don't think it's Bobby Witt or whoever wins the Central because I don't trust anything in the Central, either Central Division, AL or NL. So I go back out west and I ask myself, who's going to win the AL West? And I don't think it's Texas. As much as I like Corey Seager, and Joe mentioned it, we talked about him for home run leader yesterday. I do like him. I don't think they win the division. I've got questions about them getting back to the playoffs, actually, but that's a conversation for a different day. Julio Rodriguez has got the most tickets, the biggest handle. He's the biggest liability for AL MVP at BetMGM right now. You've seen those numbers on the screen if you're watching on Twitch. I don't know if I like Seattle to win the division either, to be honest. I love the depth of the Astros rotation and the depth of the lineup, too. Probably Bregman's last year in Houston. I think the Astros are going to do their best to take one last good run at this thing. And the offensive driver there, it's a short number at 9-1, but it's Yordan Alvarez. This is a guy who could hit 335 home runs. So I end up arriving at the same spot. We're at the same destination, Joe. We just took a few different turns to get there. Mine is the Astros, I think, are going to be the best team in the toughest division in baseball. And Yordan Alvarez is going to be the best player on that team. So I like him at 9-1.
There was a video released by Fields' manager of him in his kitchen, shirtless, jumping around, reacting to what Poles said, that if we move Fields, we're going to have to do it before we get to free agency. And so, meaning it's close, and why would he be celebrating? Oh, well, maybe going to his hometown team in Atlanta, Aaron, and that's why they're minus 425 favorites. So there was a lot that went into that move yesterday, and it's been the obvious move all along. And if I'm a Falcons fan, like, of all the possible paths, yeah, give me Fields on that turf. The upgrade from Ritter to Fields, I'm not the biggest Fields guy. He's been disappointing so far, but that would be a significant one.
I agree. I think it's a great fit, especially that he is from that area. And I love the move. I mean, this is why I love the NFL. Even here on February 29th, NFL is the lead. We've got managers leaking celebration videos, and everyone's trying to read the tea leaves. Give me more of that. I actually didn't know about the Caleb Williams thing. Is it true? Is it not true? But of course, he's going to have to say the right things now, right? That he wants to go to Chicago. And that would be weird if there was some kind of shakeup there and he didn't end up going to Chicago. But last year, even with the rumors that Lamar could end up in Atlanta, I thought that was a great pick. And I love the Justin Fields to Atlanta. If that happens, it seems like he certainly wants it to happen, if you believe that's what that video was about. Or maybe he's just excited that his birthday's March 5th and he's just celebrating a little early.
Sure, that's what it is.
Right.
Yes, it's just an
That's
early
what grown-ass men
birthday.
do. They jump up and down in their kitchen to make sure somebody videos it. Chris, I was a little unplugged, but I know you reacted to this. I thought that Fields unfollowed the Bears on all the social media platforms because he didn't want anything but no football stuff. He wanted to step away. He wanted to stop seeing it. I can't take it. I thought that's what.
Yeah, I mean, he wanted to see more thirst traps and fewer NFL headlines, sure, but he also didn't want to follow the Bears anymore. I mean, it all folds in together. I'm happy if this is the way it goes, okay, and it makes a ton of sense. I'm happy for the Bears and their fans. You're going to get your guy number 1 overall. You're going to get to extend the quarterback clock, as it were. I'm happy for Justin Fields. I think Atlanta is a great landing spot for him. What I'm not happy for, sorry, selfishly, give me like 90 seconds here, my stupid Pittsburgh Steelers, who were in line to make this move. But, there's a reason, guys. For just a split second, let me get serious. There's a reason the players in that locker room gave ownership an F last year on those report cards that came out yesterday. It's because ownership of the Pittsburgh Steelers has grown out of touch with the players and the fans and the game itself. You didn't notice that Mike Tomlin got the A? Mike Tomlin might be holding things together in that room, and ownership got the F because Art Rooney II is not even close to holding a candle in the direction of the shadow of his father's reputation, Dan Rooney, who was the once ambassador to Ireland, of course, and, chairman of the Steelers, helped build the dynasties of the 70s and then a couple of more Super Bowl teams 30 years after that. He's not in touch with what's going on. He didn't renovate the locker room like he said he was going to do. He got new folding chairs like they did in Kansas City. That's a Clark Hunt move. That's an Art Rooney II move. That's what? I'll save a few bucks here and there. We're a family-owned business kind of move. And what's going to happen is Justin Fields is going to get traded to the Falcons. Sorry, I'm near the end of my rant. Just let me get this off my chest. Justin Fields is going to get traded to the Falcons. Kirk Cousins is not going to sign in Pittsburgh because, God forbid, the Steelers spend big money on a quarterback not named Ben Roethlisberger. And they'll end up running it back with Kenny and Mason. And Kenny will be the starter, and Mason will have to swoop in, and who knows how well he'll do again. But that's what the Pittsburgh Steelers under Art Rooney II do. They just kind of try to skate by on past precedent and reputation. So good for Justin Fields. He wouldn't have done very well, I don't think, with Arthur Smith here in Pittsburgh anyway. If he ends up in Atlanta, good for him. It's a good restart to his career. And now that's off my chest. And we can talk about the Lakers. And something else I'd like to warn people about. Don't let last night fool you.